We have to run in the job, in life, we have to be cool. But we came from the land, we came from nature.
This is Tante Belle Cose, a podcast about the many beautiful things that you can discover in Italy. I'm your host, Danielle O'Terry. I'm a writer, the founder of Feast Travel, Arthur Avenue Food Tours, and Cilento Food Tours. I'm going to bet good money that you've never heard of Melito, Irpino. It's a village that's not near anything you've heard of, and it's not a pretty town. The original village was destroyed by an earthquake in 1961. The government razed it, and then they built a new version of Melito with brutalist architecture, which is nobody's favorite architecture. But Anita di Pietro calls Melito the magic circle. It was designed as a square with a traffic circle that runs around it. And in the center is her family's restaurant, which is like a little portal that takes you to another place, another time, someplace where life is as you wish it could be. So I'm going to introduce you now to Anita and her family, including her parents, Teresa and Enzo, and introduce you to some of the other people who have entered this magic circle. I recorded this episode inside the restaurant, which was closed that day. But of course the family started pulling lunch together, and there were people coming in and out. And so when I was editing this episode, I decided to leave the sound as it was, so you too could feel like you were joining us. And you'll hear my dog, who makes her presence known during this, and the sound of plates clanking and water pouring while we're chatting. Now, my intention, originally, was to speak with Anita about the historic recipes that are served at the Trattoria. They don't do modern dishes. What they serve are the dishes of Sunday and of special events that are typical of the region, which is called Irpinia. Now, abroad, people tend to think that Italian food is this very authentic preservation of the past. But that's not true. Italian food has changed so much, and especially in the last few years, and not for the better. Today, I see food delivery everywhere. Starbucks and large sugary coffees have arrived in Italy, and so have bocconcini di pollo, chicken nuggets. But at Antica Trattoria di Pietro, you're going to find scamorza cheese that's wrapped in cabbage and then baked in the oven with a little bit of tomato sauce on it. Maybe it doesn't sound good, and honestly, it doesn't look pretty either, but it is delicious. This is food made from the traditions of the poor. Simple preparations of people who did the best with what they had, and they did well.
Minestra maritata, in English we can call it the wedding soup. The vegetables were wild vegetables because for the woman was easy to go in the land. The same idea. Go in the land and found, wild celery, wild escarole. You need to have 7 kinds of herbs. They cooked this dish for the wedding and in the Christmas period. So you have this big dish with vegetables, meat, and a little piece of polenta. It's crunchy and soft inside. I think that is fantastic because everybody can eat this dish. Even if we have vegetarian or vegan, they can eat without the meat because the meat is in the dish. So we cook separately.
Oh, what is she doing?
Crescenzo is cutting a big piece of meat, and so she is begging, and you cannot move her.
Is he getting annoyed?
No, Papa, he's really happy. Papa,
Yeah?
he's
Okay.
laughing. He goes, "This is raw. What are you looking at me for? This is raw meat." And so I said, Lenù, come on, lasciala sta. I said, come with me. And you can't move her. Mom is laughing. Dad, io penso, it's like cutting up like a piece of like Fiorentino steak.
Yeah.
So it's like that big.
So the history of the Trattoria started in 1934, thanks to my great-grandfather.
Anita explains how the Trattoria began almost as a joke, really just as an opportunity to make some extra money. It was during the fascist era when her great-grandfather had a small house that had an extra room, and the government would pay them to serve meals to poor pregnant women. This was a time of deep poverty. And so they started serving simple meals to these young women, and then later nuns arrived, and then there were teachers that were brought to the village, but there were no public transportation services, So then, in the extra room, they were asked to dorm the teachers. And so it became a hosteria, a place that had rooms as well as very simple local meals. And then an earthquake hit the village.
Because the village was a little village without a lot of service, and my grandfather, he did different jobs in the same time. So he had the mill, he played the music, and he had this osteria. But there was a time when he decided to go in South Africa, and he was away for 7 years. And he worked in a factory in the day, and in the night he played in a jazz club.
A second earthquake hit, and the village of Melito Irpino was too dangerous to inhabit. But a new town, a new version of the town was built, and the family decided to continue the restaurant there.
The old village was destroyed completely by government after the second earthquake. My father decided to continue the restaurant. I started in like waitress and sommelier, but when I was 27, after my studies and my experience, I come back. My father, he have a big attachment for the traditions. He sometimes tell me, you have to go in Piemonte to eat taglierini, not here. Here we use the olive oil, not the butter. The risotto, you have to go in Mantova.
Anita doesn't seem like someone who spent most of her life in a small village. She's very sophisticated, and she has this air about her, a presence. And she really seems to cast a spell on everybody around her. And it was the whiff of patchouli that gave away to me the fact that she's also a little bit mystical.
I studied tourism in Naples. It was a really nice period of my life, even if the man of my family wasn't really agree with this idea. But my mom helped me, and so I went to go to study, and university opened my mind, and Naples too. But sometimes I feel in a prison, because when you cook, you do the food in this way. Usually the life of the chef is a hard life, because you have to spend a lot of time in the kitchen.
Most of the guests at the restaurant are local people.
No.
No. People travel.
No, why? In the past, sincerely, I thought that they don't come to eat here because they had grandmother that cooked the same dish. Because in the past, until 10 years ago, there was nonna and nonno who prepared the Sunday meal, and so the homemade pasta or ragu or coniglio, rabbit in the oven, this special and long dish. Now they're looking for the new style of food. A lot of our guests came from the city, Naples, Roma, Milano. A lot in these last 5 years. A lot of guests came from America, Australia, because now the city became so stressful, and in this simple place, because this village, because Melito is not town, it's village. I call Melito the magic circle, because there is a square in the center and there is a street who makes a circle. I say to myself, Anita, don't worry, this is the magic circle. Never change, but everything will happen. Now in this moment of life and in the world, we have to run in the job, in life, we have to be cool. But we came from the land, we came from nature.
That American voice you heard retrieving my dog from the giant piece of steak, that's Sarah Pompey. After a visit to her ancestral town of Gesualdo, she decided to make a very big move to Italy. Now she's friends with so many of the winemakers and food makers of Irpinia, and she acts as an ambassador to bring people to these places that would be impossible to find on your own, and certainly without being able to speak Italian.
My family comes from a village about 20 minutes away from Anita, and a friend brought me to eat here. I think I was toying with the idea of moving here. I thought I was convinced, and I think they brought me here to seal the deal. I was brought to eat here, and I walked in the restaurant and just thought, oh my gosh, because you're transported into a time machine. Everything in this restaurant is the full 90-year history of not just here, not just the village, not just the way of life, but the food, and it just kind of hits you. And then Anita came out of the kitchen, and I thought, if Anita can be here and be doing what she's doing, I can make this crazy move from California to Irpinia and help people to get to know people like her. What's so cool is it kind of brings everything that the people have done and are doing in Irpinia kind of all comes together in one place on your plate. So Anita and I spoke that first day, and I fell in love with her. I fell in love with her, the food, everything. I'm gonna start crying right now. Yes, she was.
The newest chapter in the history of the historic Trattoria includes cooking classes. Crescenzo, Anita's father, was very skeptical about this when Sarah first proposed it. They had been serving lunch and dinner like this since 1934. Why are you going to mess with a system that works? But these classes allow people to enter the magic circle. And that's where the transformation begins.
What are you doing? You are crazy. What do you think? That people who came from other country can come to visit you each month? But slowly, step by step, we try to give them a different possibility by the big city or yes.
And it's worked.
Yes.
And your dad now is super excited.
Sì.
Oh yeah, he loves to share the story and the family now, and
he loves.
I have to get a big map of the United States so that he knows where everybody is, because they're coming from all these places he's never heard of.
Yes.
And where is it on the map? You drive up and it's concrete, because the old village was unfortunately, they deemed it too unsafe to live there. Whether politics, money, corruption, I leave that to you. But this is the new version. There's just a little sign outside. You would drive right past it if you didn't know exactly where you were looking.
It's strange when you arrive in Melito because the architettura is veramente brutta.
They're almost like tiptoeing into the restaurant, a little bit like timid. Their face, they have the, I don't know what I'm doing. And they walk in and it all goes away. It's like it's washed away, and you're just enveloped in this huge hug of the restaurant with all the pictures of the old village. Anita's grandfather's, time in Africa is on display, and the jazz band pictures. And you just know you're in for something special. You don't know what it is, but you know something is going to happen here.
Among my clients, there are a few that will trust me to send them to places that they've never heard of before. They know that I've got special people and things up my sleeve. And whenever I send people to Di Pietro for a cooking class, I usually don't even prepare them. I let them drive off the highway and see this ugly, brutalist strip mall. And I know that those moments of anxiety are only going to make the transformation they feel when they walk into the restaurant that much more profound. Because that's the way I felt when I first went there last year. I parked the car and walked across the concrete piazza, and I thought, where am I? And then I was led into the kitchen where Mama Teresa was tending the pot of ragu. There it was, that pot of what we would call sauce or gravy, just a thin whisper of a flame underneath it, just like my grandmother would do, just like I do. This is like the fireplace of the Italian-American soul. And all of a sudden, I had tears running down my face. It surprised me because I couldn't even explain why. And then I started laughing through my tears. And Mama Teresa, she completely understood. She was touched that I was so touched. And she wasn't surprised. She got it.
Anita's father usually is the first one to greet you in his red tie, always red tie and blue shirt. And you start to get like this feeling that you're in. It's all about to happen. Anita will come out. They walk you through what's on the menu that day. Because sure they have menus, but it's always something different. It's whatever is in season, whatever they have. When Anita decides to try a new dish, or her mom wants to bring something back from the past, you might have the opportunity to try something you've never even thought of, like escarole, stuffed escarole, cooked in the oven with like this chicken broth, and then browned, and it's like the most incredible thing you've ever eaten. And it's so simple because, as Anita said, it this is all food based on people that didn't have a lot of money. So they were thinking, how can I use every single thing? And I think that's why people fall in love so much with your restaurant when they come here and they seek it out in the slow food guide, or they've been in Michelin before and word of mouth. They come here seeking that almost, and Anita bridges the modern world with the past, and that you're eating something that they've gone out and researched to the nth degree, and your dad fought with the women that have grown the vegetables, or that Anita's gone and foraged.
You go to check.
He goes and checks their stuff. Oh, yeah.
Really?
They get in fights. They've known each other 30 years, and they fight every week with each other at the local market.
Yes. This is funny, but lui è bravissimo. Because if one farmer try to sell him something that is no local, he recognize. No, veramente, really, this is for me is unbelievable.
The second time I visited Di Pietro, it felt like I was on an episode of Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations. There was a food writer there from China, and she was working at the restaurant to learn the recipes. And we all sat down and we had this amazing conversation about Italian food and Chinese food. And she was somebody that I never would have met elsewhere in the world. And yet here we were in a brutalist strip mall in a historic restaurant talking about ancient recipes in southern Italy. And I came away from that lovely afternoon thinking, this is why I travel. It's this contact with people whose experience of the world is so completely different from mine. And yet we can come together and we can learn so much from each other. And, this is not something that happens in most people's everyday lives, unless maybe you live in the magic circle.
And she's been back 3-4 times.
Yes, she arrives here, Jyoti. She arrives here thanks to the Gastronomic University of Slow Food in Pollenzo, to spend a time to join the kitchen and to improve. But at the beginning she was very shy, and now she's like another sister, and she called them Mama and Papa, Mama and Papa. She has the ability to prepare the Chinese food for Papa, and Papa eat.
Oh, wow.
That's huge.
That's a big for any Italian.
Yes.
Let's be serious.
I try giving my father-in-law teriyaki chicken. He won't touch it.
sure.
So
Now, at this point, my dog comes running out into the dining room. She crashes into Sarah. She jumps on her lap, knocks off her microphone, and it's like she's telling us, we're eating and you're missing it. So she jumps off of Sarah's lap and zooms into the staff room where Mama and Papa are having some lunch. And with them is Rafi Bildner. He's an American chef and pizza maker from Massachusetts who is opening a restaurant called Hilltown in the Berkshires. And he's here in Irpinia for a week to spend time with his adopted Italian family.
Di Pietro, famosa. No, I will just say, as I sit here at the, as we say, the stanza di personale, the staff room, familia room, the family room in Melito, Irpino, which is, I am so honored to say, my honorary home village that I return to in Italy every year now to come back for inspiration from the Di Pietro family. It's really the craziest thing I could ever imagine, and honestly, as a new restaurateur, young chef pizzaiolo in America, honestly, and I say this veramente profundo di mio core, from the bottom of my heart, the greatest blessing I've had in my life in terms of my journey with food and hospitality. Besides my own family, this family is really just the commitment to the land, the commitment to the territory, and also just the hospitality that I have felt here. It's unlike anything. You really feel like you are stepping into this kind of magic portal of like how things really should be. Not to say that it's not like things are challenging. It's not this everything's amazing romantic notion of that. I think some Americans think Italy always is. It's like this is real. This is just real hospitality, real food, navigating challenges of the land, challenges of the territory, and this is just really stepping into something as life should be. Family, community, and commitment to land and traditions.
Che bello.
E basta.
detto è
Sorry, un grande discorso.
bravo e
Grazie.
lui ha imparato davvero come
Enzo is looking at me now and he's always making fun of me, which is Enzo's personality. But like, veramente, I do get emotional about this because like, I would tell people all the time, like, never in a million years. I mean, chefs, people, tourists, whatever, dream of like being able to immerse themselves in a family like this. And I pinch myself every day. I mean, this morning I get up, Enzo drags me out of bed at 8 in the morning. This morning was a little later, but yesterday he drags me out of bed at 7 in the morning, and we barely even understand each other. Enzo only speaks the local dialect. Well, he prefers to speak the local dialect. I only speak broken Italian and English, and he drags me to the very special sheep cheese that the sheep munch on special herbs because of the zolfar.
the
Parmigiano, the very, very special cheese 40 minutes away from here. And
To the market.
And then to the
With
market.
woman.
The market. I know all these old women who sell all the vegetables and the pepperoni kruski, the dried sweet
Be
peppers.
careful.
Of the market.
Be careful. How Papa say you? Be careful.
Pericoloso,
Pericoloso.
because they are bandito. Enzo has been buying from this one particular woman, nome Signora Francesca. Conosco Francesca, I know, and they have bandita. Enzo says that this woman is a bandit because Enzo spends so much with her over the years, buying all of these products, all of these tantissimo frutta e verdura. But this is the thing. I literally, all of my time here is basically in the kitchen, hanging out with the family, with Anita, Teresa, with Pasquale in the cantina and the winery, or I've come for Vendemmia, for wine harvest, which is amazing, but it's mostly going from place to place to place with Enzo, to the cheesemaker, to the farm, to the market, to then go pick up paper towels for the bathroom and inspect the quality of the paper towels. And then we'll see a random wild herb on the side of the road, and then we're picking it, and then we're going to the Trattoria to get the olive oil, and then a new mill that he heard of to try a new type of a new flour, a new ancient grain. It's like, and then my goal in America with my restaurant and has always been the same, literally. And I spend all of my days, and my employees and my colleagues make fun of me because they know the story. This is the crazy. Everyone now in my life, and then gusto de mia boca. Everyone in my life in America, my family, my friends, my colleagues, my clients, my clienti, my guests, literally know very well Antica Trattoria di Pietro and Irpinia, and they know that my mentor, Enzo and Teresa and Anita Pasquale, and that I literally am going all around to the local dairies. I do 6-8 stops in a day to all the local farms, which is really difficult, but it's the right thing to do. And it's from Enzo. It's crazy. I'm gonna import. Some people import. Many people in America import olive oil and cheese and vino and specialty products from Italy, honey, whatever. My goal is to import tutto famiglia di Pietro, bring in the whole family of Di Pietro for 1 month. Maybe some people stay longer. Maybe Mama will always live with me in America. And have Antica Trattoria di Pietro in Massachusetts.
Lunch, as you can imagine, was fantastic, even though it was something that they just quickly threw together. We had the cicatelli, which are like a version of cavatelli or gnocchi. It's just a simple pasta dumpling made from flour and water, and cicatelli is the local dialect word. Then we had some of that steak that my dog was crying over, tossed with arugula and Parmigiano cheese. It's called stracciatella, which you may know as an ice cream flavor, but the word stracciatella just means little rags. So it's kind of any mix of things you throw together. And then we had that scamorza cheese wrapped in cabbage and lightly simmered in tomato sauce. My gosh, it is so good. And actually, Sarah gave me the recipe. So if you're a subscriber to this podcast, that's what's going to be on the other side of the paywall today.
Such a beautiful thing for me is like at first it was like, oh, this is a really amazing connection. This is so special. I'm very blessed. But as my restaurant plans have developed, and now a restaurant is actually opening, Io Spero, I think in 2025, that people know that the goal of this restaurant, a huge goal, is a ponte, a bridge between me, my restaurant, my team, my region, the restaurant, and Campania, and specifically Irpinia, and specifically this restaurant. I can say it best by literally next to the forno. I was telling the family this the other day. The gift they gave me after my first trip was one of their pizza pans that they have. that they've used for quanto anni? The
Più di 30 anni.
yeah, like 30 years. They get a lot of years out of these pizza pans. The Italia. Super, these pans have been used over and over in this restaurant, and like it's such a representation of the story and the beauty and the cuisine, and Mama Teresa baking these incredible pizzas in the forno, and Enzo lighting the forno earlier in the day, and I will literally hang that pan next to my oven because it's like just so fundamental to the story as this restaurant has developed, this thing of passion. So it's fundamental to my story and to my restaurant story and to the food I'll be cooking, and so I can't wait to see as I was expressing a lot of my worry and nervousness and being anxious about the restaurant opening, and obviously it's a big undertaking, but I was explaining the competition and the stress in America, and but they're asking why. I'm like, well, chefs are competing with each other and restaurants competing with each other, and everything is just like you have to be the best, and that's what we know in America, and here it's just it is a part of the world, and a very micro part of the world, where it just feels like, as Anita was just saying about when guests come here, you can just, it's trite to say this maybe, but you're just living authentically, living off the land, living in family, living in community, and I literally came on this trip now to get a little bit of that medicine before going back to the restaurant, and it's really special.
E un'ultima cosa che voglio dire è che quando mi hanno chiesto
The rest of this conversation was had in Italian, so let me translate. Anita was explaining that when she was setting up her Instagram profile, she didn't want to use the word chef. In fact, she uses @Anita Di Pietro as her Instagram handle. And her bio says she's the cook of a minor cuisine. She transforms living things into food. She lives in a magic circle, and she believes in the land. Chefs, she said, come from the French tradition. In Italy, you have cuochi, cooks, but specifically the cuisine that she's in charge of has always been the domain of women, and that's the tradition that she's a part of. So don't call her a chef. There's too much stress and competition involved with that word. She's a cook. I had to tear myself away from the table. I'm sure we could have sat there for like 3 more hours and somehow food would have just magically kept appearing. I ate so much more than I intended to, but when you're eating home-cooked food that's so simple and relies heavily on vegetables, you don't feel full in the same way. You don't get bloated with too much salt or too much butter like you do when you eat at so many restaurants today. I really wish that we could get back to this way of cooking, and I wish every place in the world had their own version of Trattoria di Pietro. So the day after we recorded this, Chris Bianco of Pizzeria Bianco, who is one of the most famous chefs in the United States, stopped by the restaurant. He is one of Rafi's mentors, and when Rafi saw on Instagram that Chris was driving from Puglia to Naples, he invited him to stop by. And he had a fabulous dinner, and he got to meet and spend time with the Di Pietro family. In Rafi's text to me about it, he said, "It really shows how magnetic the power of the Trattoria is, I think." And so the magic circle is alive and well. I hope more people will discover it, but only if they take the lessons, only if they're willing to bring those lessons home about simple food, respect for the land, respect for their traditions and communities, and about rejecting stress and competition and titles. So your time around the table is always deeply nourishing. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Tante Belle Cose. As you can tell, I really want to put the spotlight on the best, most interesting experiences in Italy and also the nicest people. In order to do this, I need you to help me get the word out. So if you enjoyed this, please do share it on social media, text it to a friend, encourage other like-minded people to listen. I would really, really appreciate it. And if you would like to become a subscriber, this is a place where you can ask me questions about your Italy trip. I tried to answer as soon as I possibly can. And also for subscribers this week, you have access to the recipe for that cabbage-wrapped cheese. Yes, it doesn't sound good, but oh my goodness, I promise you, it's amazing. Next week, I will be back with an advice episode because bookings for 2025 are coming in and we're seeing the prices. And there are some big surprises, especially in Florence. that you need to anticipate if you plan on going there. So if you're part of our subscriber trip planning community, there you can always ask one-off questions. But if you need a more detailed, in-depth, one-on-one trip consultation, you can book that directly with me at feasttravel.com. Now, you may also have heard my interview last week on the Italian American podcast. I will be doing live trip consultations in New York City at Red Sauce Studio in Little Italy in Manhattan. And if that's something that you're interested in doing, please also go to feasttravel.com. If you click on the page that says consultations, you will see the application on the bottom. The trip consultation is completely free, and you will be featured on a future episode of this podcast. Thank you so much for listening.